Good afternoon. On behalf of Jackson Growth Alliance, we would like to welcome all the panelists and attendees to the Jackson Growth Alliance Showcase. This is being coordinated and managed by Jennifer Robertson from the Carbondale Public Library. We appreciate your technical assistance. There are at least 2 or 3 people from Jackson Growth Alliance participating in this showcase. You can see them in the list of participants. I am the current chair of Jackson Growth Alliance. It's a not-for-profit organization. It's composed of businesses, not-for-profits, and individuals. And our mission is to promote economic development. I'm seeing a comment from one of the attendees that they can't hear anyone. Is anyone else having any problem with sound? Could you put that in the chat box and Jennifer can help? So Ken says he's hearing me okay, so perhaps it's a setting problem. I'm going to continue going unless Jennifer tells me otherwise.
I can hear you as well. I don't see any any problem from our end. So yeah, it might be a problem with your computer. Maybe try to check your settings.
Okay, and Alina says she's hearing. Okay, so economic development in Jackson County is our mission. The organization has been in place for decades, and they have had great success in opening the community to business development, such as the Southern Illinois Airport and the tech program. Membership is open if you live in Jackson County or the business you're working with is located in Jackson County as well. You either live here or the business you're affiliated lives here or has some connection with the county. We encourage membership. Each member brings something unique to the conversation. There are 6 permanent board seats. City of Murfreesboro is represented by Jamie Green. Egyptian Electric Cooperative is represented by Brooke Guthman. They are both involved here today. Jackson County Board's appointee is Tamiko Mueller. Southern Illinois Airport Authority permanent member is Gary Schaefer, the director of the Airport Authority. SIH is represented by Woody Thorne, and SIU Carbondale is represented by our very own Lynn Anderson Lindbergh. There are 7 community seats. I won't list that whole thing there on the slide. I am currently the board chair. We have annual meeting and election of new officers next month. We try to distribute the workload. It's been a pleasure to serve this organization. It's been a pleasure to release information into the community that can help local businesses. And I will, I guess we could advance the slide to the introduction slide. I'm going to introduce you to Melissa Ray Roach, who is the Director of Entrepreneurship and Business Development at SIU. Also participating is Ken Stoner, the Academic Development Director for Greater Egypt Regional Planning and Development Commission. We're also blessed with the attendance of Faith Miller. She is a Community Navigator for this important grant program. I may check out at about 5 till 1 if the conversation is still underway. If you have a question of one of the JGA members, if Lynn is still involved or if Brooke is still involved, you can forward your questions to them, or perhaps Jennifer can take the question and forward it to us. I am an attorney and a civil assistant at the Jackson County State's Attorney's Office, and I have a hearing at 1. So I am going to turn it over to Melissa Ray Roach and Ken Stoner with a big thank you for using this showcase to get the word out to local businesses.
Great. Melissa and Ken, you are both on camera now.
Great. Thank you so much for having us. We're excited to be here. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, it's possible that we're seeing your presenter mode instead of the other PowerPoint.
Do this
Might want-
again.
Yeah,
Sorry, I was typing and answering questions, so I'm good. So as Joni mentioned, my name is Ken Stoner. I'm the Economic Development Director for Greater Egypt Regional Planning and Development Commission. We are very involved in the Community Navigator program, and I'm grateful to SIU and to Jackson Growth Alliance and to the Carbondale Public Library for putting this on. I will be answering questions in the chat as we go through. Please feel free to go ahead and put any of your questions in the chat as we go. For those of us who are panelists, the default on the chat only sends messages to hosts and panelists. So make sure you're switching to everyone to send out to answer for the attendees as well. So with that, I will go ahead and go back to my chat, my quick typing as quickly as I can here, and I'll hand it over to Melissa Ray Roach.
Sorry about the technical difficulties. Love testing things out and then are we still not seeing my screen?
Not at the
we
moment.
don't see it. Yeah, it looked like you might need to reshare it.
Okay.
But so try going to share screen again, but then this time just choose the box that doesn't have like the presenter mode in it, just that has just says PowerPoint and just shows the full screen.
How's that?
That is perfect.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thanks for the introduction there, Ken. So before we get started, just to give you a little bit about what to expect today, we'll go through this entire presentation and at the end of it, you will get a link. So you don't have to try to write everything down. There's a lot of content here with clickable links that are really valuable. So you don't have to worry about, following along and keeping up with us. So we'll go ahead and as we go through the process, Ken will be able to answer questions and as we go, he and I will kind of tackle this together. So without further ado, we'll get right in. Thank you everybody for being here. All right, so the Back to Business programs. These are recovery grants based for businesses that have been hardest hit in the industries, which are the eligible restaurants, hotels, creative arts businesses who are eligible to apply for $175 million in available grant funding. All applicants with this will receive a grant as long as they meet eligibility requirement, submit proper documentation and attestations required by the program. So this one's a little different. Ken, do you want to talk about that a little bit? It's not a first come, first serve grant, correct?
There we go. Sorry, I was answering a question and then I hit the window button instead of the unmute button. So anyways, could you please repeat your question?
Yes, so all of the applicants will receive a grant as long as they meet eligibility requirements and they submit the proper documentation and attestation.
This is a program that is not a first come, first serve type of basis. The people who apply today have the same chance as the people who apply on May 10th. Before 11:59 p.m. After that, no, you have no chance. But so essentially, what we're being told is they will accept all the applications. They'll begin reviewing them, but no decisions will be made until after that May 10th deadline, because that will allow them to see the number of qualifying applicants and then divvy the money out that way.
Exactly. Thank you for the clarification there. And this program designed for B2B restaurants, B2B hotels, and B2B arts was based upon legislation that came down that established this. And you can look more into that if you would like. So the partners, the DCO partners on this are the NCRC CDF, and they were chosen through a competitive application process. And they're handling the technical portal support, helping with the application review, managing the development of the application portal, and providing support and processing payments. There's also Submittable, who NCRC CDF chose as a sub-awardee, and they will be the ones running the online portal. And then we have also over 100 community navigators that are available for technical assistance. They'll be doing outreach, and you may have already received information from some of them. They'll provide support and help navigate the application process. So important dates and resources. The portal actually opened today. And you have until May 10th, like Ken said earlier, at 11:59 p.m. to apply. So it's open currently, and you can go to illinois.gov/B2B and NCRC's website to apply for the illinois.gov-B2B. If you just go to the bottom of the page, there's a little button there that you can click to start the application process. For program questions, you can reach out to Community Navigators. There'll be a list of those in this presentation that you can click on. And then if you have questions, you can also reach out to NCRC Submittable. Any other thing that you want to add there on resources, Ken, on reaching out? He's answering a question.
Additional resources.
For who to reach out to?
So this email address is the one down here with at Submittable. Oh, I'm sorry. I think I just sent that to the wrong person. Anyways, that is sort of the primary point of contact. I believe I may have a phone number as well, but I'll have to double check that. They are answering questions from 8 to 8. 7 days a week, Monday through Friday, or I'm sorry, 7 days a week, but 12 hours a day. So they're sort of the primary point of contact, but I would encourage you to reach out to your community navigator as well. And there is a list on the website, and there are issues with the list. So I would encourage you to reach out to one of us if you're unsure of the specific person to whom you should reach out.
Thank you, Ken. And then we get the question a lot of when will the awards be dispersed? So June and July, like prior rounds of funding, applicants will have the opportunity to appeal if they feel that they have met the eligibility criteria and were denied a grant. So we'll go through first an overview of all three programs, and then we will go into them individually. So all businesses that meet the eligibility requirement and submit the proper documentation and attestations will receive a grant, like we said earlier, through the program. So restaurant employment and stabilization grant, the B2B restaurants, there's 50 million there. It's up to 50,000 for restaurants or taverns with 50 or fewer employees. The hotel jobs recovery grant, B2B hotels, is 75 million. And that's up to 1,500 per room. The Illinois Creative Recovery Grant, B2B Creative Arts, 50 million there as well. And that's up to 250,000 in grants for arts and cultural organizations. We will dissect this a little bit more on the next slide here. So the B2B restaurants, B2B hotels, B2B arts. Funding available again for restaurants, 50 million. Hotels, 75 million, and arts is an additional 50 million. The award range for restaurants is 5 to 50,000. B2B hotels is up to $1,500 per room. And then the arts, 5,000 to 250,000. So impact of receiving prior award. There are some stipulations here. So under restaurants, ineligible if business received any prior state relief funding, B2B, big RRF, or more than 10K in local funding. And then businesses who received federal funds, such as PPP, are eligible. So for hotels, the amount of state or local grants received will just be deducted from the overall award amount, so you can still apply. And then the arts category, grants based only on 2021 losses for businesses that received prior state relief funding, big or B2B. Spending guidelines, they're a little different for each category. For restaurants, it's flexible spending to support losses. For the hotels, 80% for payroll related costs, 20% for flexible spending. And then B2B arts, flexible spending to support losses. So that's a lot more flexible there. We'll dig into that one more when we come down. And then what are those categories? So examples of eligible businesses for restaurants, it's restaurants, it's taverns, bars, cateries, breweries, wineries, food trucks. So it's not just the restaurants. Hotels, it'll be hotels, motels, inns, and lodging sites. Then performing arts, that's performing and presenting arts, theaters, museums, arts education, and cultural heritage organizations. So eligibility and application documents for all of the programs. Independently owned and operated for-profit corporation or limited liability corporation, partnership, or sole proprietorship. Authorized to conduct business in the state of Illinois or a nonprofit in Illinois and registered as a 501c organization. Sometimes we get questions about independent contractors here. Ken, do you want to talk about independent contractors?
Yeah, let's touch on that. Though I do want to just real quickly, there's been a couple of questions in the comments that I want to address for the people who may not be able to see the chat. Big thank you to Jennifer for mentioning that. So let's see here. So the B2B, is this a replacement of the GROW grant, which I've been told is what they called B2B previously? That I'd not heard that, but this is, so it's not necessarily a replacement of the B2B program. It's more of a continuation of it. This is, like I said, it's a continuation that's specifically focused on these three industries. So new program within the same overarching program, I guess is the best way to put that. Let's see, any others? You do have to have been in business prior to March 12th, 2020. There are some weirdnesses that go along with that. So for example, if you started in 2020 and you don't have 2019 tax returns, you are still eligible. If you bought a business and can, even if you've changed entity type, even if you've changed FEIN, if you can be able to provide some sort of a purchase agreement, something that would prove that this business that currently exists is the same as the one that had existed prior, you could still be eligible. Other than that, unless you started before March 12th of 2020, you are not eligible. And then there's more questions I haven't gotten to yet. Okay, so let's talk about sole proprietorships and independent contractors. So this one is one that it's a little bit confusing because by definition, if you're an independent contractor, you are running an independent business, and unless it is registered as an LLC or corporation or nonprofit, it is a sole proprietorship. Even if it's an unregistered sole proprietorship, it's still a sole proprietorship. So you do not necessarily have to be registered at the county level in order for you to be considered a sole proprietorship. Because if you're operating under your legal name, you don't have to necessarily register. You don't have to get an FEIN if you are a sole proprietorship. You can usually use your social security number, not in all cases, but those of you who may be using your social security numbers now, that's still fine. You can potentially look at getting an FEIN at this point. It is instantaneous. It is free. And that wouldn't necessarily be a terrible idea, but the tax returns that you were providing with this 2019, 2020, and 2021, whatever identifying number that's on there, you'll want to continue using that same number. So here is the best explanation I can give you as to whether a sole proprietorship is eligible for this. a lot of it comes down to how you file your taxes. So I guess the primary thing I'd want to say is if you think you may be eligible, apply. If you aren't sure if you're eligible, apply. Worst they can say is no. Better to get that no than, not apply at all, in my opinion. So, but the bottom line is with that taxes, if you're filing a Schedule C, you are considered a sole proprietorship. If you are incorporating your revenue from the business on your other income line of your regular 1040 without doing a Schedule C, then that is not, you are likely not eligible. But again, that definition is not one that I'm in love with. So I would encourage you to apply, I guess is the biggest point of that.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Thank you. And businesses must be in good standing with an Illinois Secretary of State. Businesses that received federal COVID-19 relief funding, such as PPP or EIDL, are eligible, like I said earlier. And then eligibility for receiving B2B, BIG, and RRF differs per program. As Ken stated earlier, it must have been established by March 12th of 2020, and businesses that were established early in 2020, restaurants and creative art businesses specifically, are eligible to receive $5,000. Application documents required for all programs: business owner, non-for-profit lender identification, driver's license, state ID, passport, city key, tax returns are required, and then specific years vary by program, but may include 2019, 2020, and 2021. All right, so ineligible businesses, this is for all programs as well. A government-owned business entity, a private club, or that limits membership based upon capacity. All businesses engage in activities that are prohibited by federal law or applicable law in the jurisdiction where the business is located or conducted. A business primarily engaged in political or lobbying activities. If you're engaged in teaching, instructing, counseling, or indoctrinating religion or religious beliefs, whether in a religious or secular setting. Nightclubs or strip clubs, pawn shops, liquor stores, and permanently closed businesses, all ineligible for all programs. So now we'll dig into each grant. We'll start with the restaurants. So restaurants, taverns, bars, caterers, breweries, wineries, food trucks, and street vendors. A full list can be found on the website that I mentioned earlier and will be listed throughout this presentation, which is the illinois.gov/B2B. You have to have 50 or fewer employees and in operation again by March 12th of 2020 and still in operation today. Had to have experienced a lost and earned or contributed revenue of at least $5,000 due to economic disruptions related to the COVID-19 pandemic. Has not received state or local pandemic funding, including the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, pardon me, and then Illinois Back to Business grants, the Illinois Business Interruption grants, the RRF, B2B, and BIG. Any other local or state program that provided over $10,000 in grants or loan forgiveness. Restaurants that received federal PPP or other federal relief besides RRF, are eligible to apply, on that part. And then awards and grant spending guidelines. So award size, it'll be based upon losses incurred based on tax information submitted, up to $50,000. The number of applicants may also impact the award amount. So because this isn't a first come, first serve, don't know how many people are actually going to apply for the grants, and that's what may affect the size of it. Award spending guidelines. Funds must be spent within a year of the award, and attestation will be required. Any funding not spent within the year must be returned. So continue on the expenditures. You can use it for payroll costs, paid sick leave, healthcare costs, the principal or interest on any mortgage obligation, rent payments, including rent under a lease agreement, utilities, maintenance, and operational expenses. And additional documents that will be required for the B2B restaurant is you'll have to provide your current food and beverage license at time of application. So make sure that you have that ready to go. And then next up is hotels. So eligibility for hotels. This is hotels, motels, inns, lodging sites. A full list can be found on the website that we've been mentioning, illinois.gov/B2B. Eligibility, you have to have been in operation by March 12th of 2020 and still in operation today. Short-term and or vacation rentals are not eligible. Prior recipients of state COVID-19 funds, the BIG and the B2B, are eligible to apply. An amount previously received under BIG or B2B will be deducted from total award. Award size, based upon the number of rooms, it's up to $1,500 per room. All prior state and local pandemic funding will be subtracted from the total amount awarded. The number of applicants may also impact the award amounts, just like in the previous explanation. So award spending guidelines, eligible expenditures, funds must be spent within a year of award. Same thing, in it, and attestation will be required. 80% of the funding must be spent on payroll employee related costs, including payroll, paid leave, other employee benefits, employee contribution for healthcare, et cetera. Then 20% of the funding is flexible based upon the needs of the business. So arts. This one's a little more complicated. So the business type for this are performing arts or presenting arts, venues, museums, cultural heritage organizations, arts education organizations. Full list can be found within the eligibility documents on that website again. And it goes into a lot more detail on the FAQs on these websites, because there's a lot of questions of what is a venue. As you go into the FAQs, there's a lot of information that is there to help describe and define that. Eligibility must have been in operation on that March 12th of 2020 date and still in operation today, just like the other two. And then prior recipients of state COVID-19 funds, the BIG and B2B, are eligible to apply. So the guidelines on this, award size is based upon losses, either gross receipts for businesses or revenues for not-for-profits, with a maximum award amount of $250,000. Applicants that previously received BIG or B2B grant must use tax year 2021 as the comparison year. The number of applicants on this one may also impact the award amounts. For nonprofits, award will be based on declines in earned revenue, contributed revenue, or total revenue, whichever is greater. So important dates and resources. The application portal actually opened today, April the 5th, and it will be open through May the 10th. And you can go to that illinois.gov/B2B to apply, or NCRC's website as well. For program questions, like we mentioned earlier, the Community Navigators are great for this. It's a lot of information to take in on your own. So reaching out to a Community Navigator to help walk you through the process is great. And like I mentioned previously, there will be outreach that is taking place in different communities. For portal application questions, you'll reach out to our partners at NCRC at the email and website listed. And then June and July awards will be dispersed. Additional assistance is here. And like I mentioned, the presentation link will come out, and all of these links that you can click on to obtain further information. Then the website again, one more time, is illinois.gov/B2B. And that's eligibility guidelines for each program. And then the FAQs that I mentioned, very helpful resources there. And then locally, you can reach out to the Community Navigator, Faith, who is on this call. You can reach her at 618-536-2424 or at bizhelp@siu.edu. Ken, any other thing on local contacts that you'd like to add? I know you're typing away on the questions.
Yes, absolutely. I was just finishing this one quick thought and then I will hop in. All right. So we've had some great questions in the chat, and what I would specify here is there are lots of intricacies to this that we really haven't gotten too deeply into. So for example, with restaurants, you can't have had a third of your revenue come from any sort of legal gambling. We had a question about like a restaurant that has fans, and so again, there's a lot of little factors that we could talk about. I would say if you feel like your question is pretty wide, pretty applies to quite a few people, please we'll address it because it'll benefit everyone. However, if it gets pretty specific, I would encourage you to use that email address that Melissa had on the screen earlier, because then you are talking to the people who are making these decisions, and maybe you bring something to their attention that they hadn't thought about. All of us, the community who are involved in the Community Navigator program, we've been firing off every question we can think of at them for the past multiple months, but that doesn't mean we thought of all of them. So I would encourage you to reach out to them. And if you get a great answer and want to forward it to us so we can pass that information on to others, great, no pressure. Everything that we consider it all confidential. So we're very careful about sharing anything. So let's, as far as the contacts, as I mentioned, there is, actually, I think I've got a file I can share here that's going to be beneficial. Can I share my screen for just a moment? Is that possible?
Yep, I think, yeah, Melissa, we'll just need to stop and you can share yours.
Perfect. So this map right here, and I've got Zoom stuff all over my screen. Can you see the whole thing?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the map we have put together to help kind of specify which counties or which areas of which counties should go to which spoke. So there are 3 spokes that cover these counties. SIU, the one that we're with right now, Melissa Ray Roach, they cover the counties in blue. SIUE, they have the counties in green, and Southern 5 has the counties in whatever color that is, pinkish, reddish, brownish, So I would encourage you to reach out to them because they're the ones who are kind of out there dealing with this every day. They're out there answering all these questions. So they're the ones who are most likely to have those questions. So as was mentioned in the introductions, Faith is with us today. She will be the primary point of contact if you're in the blue counties. Notice Randolph is split. We split Randolph sort of in half. That doesn't mean that you have to break out a magnifying glass and try and figure out which side of that line you're on. I'm just saying, if you go to Randolph County, we kind of split it, but if you're in Redbud and have connections at SIU and Carbondale, please feel free to use them. Same thing for Chester. If you've got contacts at SIUE, please use them. This is about us providing help to you and trying to go through these. The application process is not difficult, but it's also not super simple. So sometimes it's beneficial to have people with you, whether that's through Zoom sharing screen, whether that's in the same room, whether you're just firing questions off to them through email. these are the people who can answer those questions quickly. And if they don't have the answer, they can run the question up the chain as well. So I would encourage you either way, whether you reach out to the email address that was on the screen earlier, or you reach out through these spokes, just reach out, because we want you to get these programs. There's X amount of dollars in these programs, and we really want them to go to Southern Illinois. If you're from Cook County, you really want to go to Cook County, right? It benefits us where we live. And so we want to see as many people apply for this as possible. We want to see as many people get these funds as possible, because as long as you use these funds properly, they don't have to be paid back. And there's not a lot of opportunities that arise for business owners where, you know, you're getting opportunity to get funds that can be used for business expenses and don't have to be paid back. I will say that, and I answered this in the chat, but the restaurants and the hotels, you have 1 year to spend the funds. There is no specification on anything I have heard or found of when the creative artists have to spend their funds. I would assume that it might be a year, but I haven't heard that for sure. For the other two, actually for all three, you're going to have to sign an attestation at the end of the year that says, yep, I did in fact spend these funds the way that they were supposed to be spent. So for example, the one that jumps out to me the most is the one that has to have, let me go back to here. So the hotel one, you notice they've got 80% has to go towards payroll related costs. If you use 75% towards payroll costs, expect to have to pay your money back. So pay very close attention to this and how you can spend the money. There are some of them will allow for you to use the money for maintenance. So, you know, you had some damage, or you need to do some upkeep. That sort of thing is usually fine. If you're looking to expand and add a new patio, that is usually not fine. This is sort of, think of it in terms of expenses that would have come about as a result of COVID-19. If you're looking to expand, that's great. There are ways of working with your SBDC to try and come up with ways of making that happen. But these programs are not for that. So that would be the biggest things I would want to share. Let me see if there were any other comments in the chat that I've answered that I need to address. There was a question about the difference in between this and the 2019 for B2B for arts. I don't off the top of my head recall the specifics of that program. We've dealt with a lot of programs in these 3 years, but I would be happy to look into that and get back with you on the differences. If you would, I'm going to go ahead and put my email address in the chat. It's very easy. It's my first name, last name, Ken Stoner @greateregypt.org. And if I type it right, yes, there we go. Oh, and there's still 3 in the Q&A. A food truck. Would a food truck qualify? I do believe so. I would need to double check that in the notes, but I'm like 90% sure, yes.
Food trucks, yes.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I never, unless I'm 100% sure, I never want to say yes definitively. Small catering business without a food license. Okay. The restaurants, when they do require they call it being duly licensed. And so they do require that you provide your license. And I assume that would be the one through IDFPR. But they actually specify in here, current license to serve food and or drink, a brewer license, a distiller license, or a winery license. One of those must be provided in order for you to be eligible. And about restaurants and decline in business. How much do they have to show? Okay, at least 5,000. And this is on restaurants, right? Yeah. So you have to show at least $5,000 in loss. And that can be, because it gets a little bit weird. If you can't provide 2019 tax returns, then they look at it differently. So I will come back to that one. Okay, let me go back to the chat. Greater Egypt, yes, that should say greateregypt.org. I mistyped my own email address. I'll blame it on the storms. There we go. Okay. And back to the chat. This is going to be available on the library's YouTube channel. So for anyone who, may want to go back and review the recording, please do so. You can do it there. You will also get the people who are in here will get a link to the presentation emailed to them. If you do not, please feel free to utilize that email address I shared, and I will send it directly to you. And I think that's all the questions. If I missed one, please put it back in the chat near the bottom so it can pop back up for me. Okay. Any other thoughts, Miss Melissa?
No, I think we covered it all. It's just if they have more questions, utilizing the resources, the websites, the community navigator, making the phone calls, like you said, just reaching out to somebody to help them. But the FAQs are very helpful.
They are, and we've got a couple questions in the chat about which tax returns are required. What I would say is if you go onto that website and you get the FAQ document, then I look at the one for your specific industry, and there's specific information in here about which tax returns are provided or need to be required or are required. There's a whole required documentation section, and it's different for each program. So, I've got the restaurants one in front of me. Oh, yes, and I will send that map that I pulled up to Jennifer to send out. So for restaurants, you have to be able to provide a government issued ID, your FEIN, that can also be your ITIN, your Illinois Taxpayer Identification Number, or your Social Security number if you are a sole proprietorship utilizing your Social Security number. For business taxes, that might be your 1040, it might be your 1065, it might be your 1120 or 1120S, your 990, your 990EZ, or your 990N. So, and each list is a little bit different. That's why I didn't get too deep into what each one is requiring. And then each one might have a specific additional component, like in the case of the restaurants, they require the licensing. In the case of creative arts, they require financial documentation. Now so you don't necessarily just have to be an artist. You can also run an arts education institute. You could run an art museum. Your primary focus has to be something to do with arts. So if you are a restaurant that displays and sells arts on your wall, that doesn't necessarily make you eligible because that's not the primary focus of the business. The primary focus of the business in that case is the restaurant. For hotels, I will pull that up. Again, I do encourage you to look on the line itself. Hotels is the one that doesn't have a fourth thing. It's just your government issue ID, and it cannot be expired. So if it's expired, go to the DMV, go get it fixed because you don't want to have that be a problem. Your FEIN, again, same things apply about the ITIN or the Social Security number, and the business tax forms for the hotels is a 1040 or a 1065 or an 1120, 1120S, 990, 990EZ, or 990N. Now, I do want to specify that 440, that may include your Schedule C if you're a sole proprietorship. Can you become? That's an excellent question. I love this kind of thinking. Can I get a food license now and become eligible? Let's find out. I will say that getting the food license isn't a super quick process. So if that is the case, I would do it sooner rather than later. But I'm not positive. Most of the things that they require, like 50 or fewer employees in certain instances, it's as of the date of the application. So let's say you had 100 employees prior to COVID, you have 45 now, you're still okay because you had 50 as of the time of application. So I'll have to get into that a little bit deeper. If for those of you who I've said I need to get into it a little bit deeper, if you would, please send an email to me at that email address I shared earlier and copy and paste your question into that, and I will get back with you directly. Airbnbs are not eligible. they are specifically called out as not eligible 3 times in this documentation. So the reason I say that is because they really are they're very clear about this, that VRBOs, Airbnbs, short-term vacation rentals are ineligible. Who can I email to ask for assistance? I would say, Melissa, what are you guys using the BizHelp at siu.edu?
Yes, we are.
Would you mind throwing that in the chat, please?
I got you.
So for those of you who, whenever I pulled that map up, were in blue, we're going to share the email address in the link. It's bizhelp@siu.edu, B-I-Z help. For the other 2, I would just say, call that main number and ask for an email address. They'll get it to you. There are people who just aren't phone people, and I get that. If that's the case, send me an email and I will get an email address for you and send it back to you. But the BizHelp one is the only one I know off the top of my head.
I got it in there.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Mhm. It did get brought up with the Airbnb thing that if a hotel uses Airbnb or VRBO, they still do qualify. So
Correct.
that will not.
Yes. Yeah, excellent point. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, a hotel, you're looking at $1,500 a room maximum. And then, so the VRBO won't really necessarily apply to that. The reason I say it's 1,500 maximum, and forgive me if Melissa's already said this while I was typing and didn't hear her, but let's say that there, a ridiculous number of hotels apply for this and are all eligible. Well, in that case, there's only X amount of dollars. So they can potentially reduce the amount per room across the board. It wouldn't just affect one, it would affect everybody. So if there's more applicants, then the funds will allow for them to have $1,500 per room. It will be reduced for everyone. Okay. Any other thoughts, comments, questions, concerns? I don't see anything else in the chat. I will say we've had a comment that they may not have received an email. There's just been some fluctuation. There's been some things going on behind the scenes with all these programs getting launched. If that has been the case, please send it again. Also, copy me on it. Maybe I can answer the question. We want to get these questions answered for you as quickly as possible because our goal is for you to have successful applications. Our help doesn't cost anything. It's all being provided for by the Community Navigator program. We won't share anything that you share with us. That's the reason that the list of attendees is not visible to the public today. We keep all of this very confidential. We may be dealing with tax returns, and it doesn't mean we even have to see them. If you're comfortable uploading them on your own, great. If you don't have access to a scanner, we have scanners in our offices. We will figure out a way to make this work. If you think you are eligible, please apply. If you're having problems, reach out. This is why we're here. We want to help. You're not bothering us. You can email me multiple times. You're not bothering me. This is why I'm here. So let us help. Doesn't cost you anything. It's all confidential. And we're the ones who have dealt with these forms from the beginning. I'm not saying we're going to have all the answers, but we will likely have more answers and we can get answers to the questions we don't necessarily know off the top of our head. And I just want to say thank you again to the Office of Innovation and Economic Development at SIU, to the Carbondale Public Library, to Jackson Growth Alliance, to everybody who's been involved in this. Our whole goal is just to be here, to answer questions, to help. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to be a part of that.
And it looks like Joni Beth Bailey had to leave the Zoom. So she just asked that we thank everyone for attending. You can contact director at jacksonbiz.org for questions, and you can let them know how they can help you.
Thank you all so much
for speaking today.
Thank you for having us. This has been great.
Thank you.
Okay, bye everyone.
Bye.
Bye.